Kinesiology 230, Chapter 15, Presentation 10, last one of this chapter. This is sequence training, and it's also a little bit of just my perspective in terms of program design that's going to be layered in as well. So without wasting any time, let's get to it. Here we are, we're in sequence training, the very last. I'm not going to get too much into sample programs, so this will be the last topic that we're going to hit in this chapter. So from a program design, I talked about before in terms of hypertrophy being like a higher volume environment with a lower overall intensity environment. And so when you look at this, hypertrophy is higher volume, lower intensity. Base strength, it's kind of a reduction in overall volume while increasing percent intensity. Strength is increased intensity specific to power-oriented movements and also increases intensity to movement patterns that are very familiar to the athlete in terms of their core exercises. Power is an event or a test out. Usually you're talking about several weeks of training leading up to power. And then peaking, that's usually a one time a year, perhaps 2 times a year, depending upon how the calendar falls. But usually scheduling wise, with competitive seasons, et cetera, you won't really have a peaking phase. And with many of your clients that you'll work with, like I say, you'll use this methodology, but you might have them peak out in terms of doing maximal testing, but it won't be 1 rep max testing. It'll be like a 4 rep max, maybe a 3 rep max. Remember, you can calculate your repetition. Your max is based off of your rep range as well as weight moved. And this is all in the context of general to specific, simple to complex, lower intensity to higher intensity, higher volume to lower volume. So you have your generalized movement patterns, your simple movement patterns, your lower intensity, your higher volume, and then at peaking, it's going to be very specific, going to be more complex, it's going to be higher intensity, and it's going to be lower volume. So it's kind of a continuum that moves up and down this pyramid. And with this, the book kind of knows that the sequence for maximal strength will include hypertrophy training first, then maximal strength training. Power development training will require hypertrophy first, strength second, then a focus on power. I submit this to you because I'm certain you see it somewhere else. But the process understanding begins with the understanding of the goal of the clients and know the limitations and contraindications that the client may have. And then also the timeline that the client has as well, because there might be some constraints. From the first of the year to spring break, it's usually about 8 weeks. And I would suggest that if you're trying to get somebody to test out maximally in 8 weeks, you're probably not giving them enough time. If you're working with athletes, you might have, say, like your fall sports that become winter, fall sports that go into off-season mode starting in January. They would be definitely in a hypertrophy phase. They would do base strength and power, but they probably wouldn't get to, base strength to strength, but they probably wouldn't get fully into power and peaking by spring break. Those sports, though, if they train over the summer, could probably make it through once you do mesocycle preseason or meso preseason 1 or 2, depending, would have hypertrophy, base strength, power, and then peaking, and they would test out the first week that they're on campus for their fall sport. So my point is, in terms of timeline, sometimes the calendar just doesn't give you the opportunity to go fully from hypertrophy to peaking, and you have to allow the appropriate amount of time so you can apply the right stressors, because base strength is built off of hypertrophy, strength is built off of base strength, and power is built off of strength, and peaking is the result of power. You can't just take somebody to peaking after going through higher volume hypertrophy. It just doesn't work. So the question becomes, is it spring break? Is it a destination wedding 6 months from now? Is it something they want to do a year from now? That gives you the window of opportunity to do your programming. And the phasing and sequence matters. And I just want to point this out, that this is in the book, and I'm certain you see it somewhere else. You want sequence of maximal strength will include hypertrophy training first, then maximal strength training. Power development will require hypertrophy strength, then a focus on power. Notice what happens when we start talking about power versus maximal strength, right? You need to have strength in place to be able to have power. You have to have hypertrophy and strength to go into maximal strength. So one kind of begets the other, which begets the other, which I noted here on the pyramid. And again, it's just kind of the backstory here is always general to specific, simple to complex, lower intensity, higher volume, lower volume. And that book provides a number of different sample programs here, and they're okay, but I'm going to tell you, when you start working with people, you end up having a little more nuance to what you do with people. It's not one size fits all, the programming for a client, it's got to meet the wants and the needs of that person, but you also have to understand the limitations. And we talked about that earlier in the earlier presentations regarding, do you have the equipment? Are the facilities in place? Can you work with your clients the way you want to work with them? I would contest that with most individuals who go into personal training and fitness. You probably have everything you could possibly need or want. If you're in strength and conditioning, perhaps if you go to a smaller school environment, you might not have some of the equipment you want, and you may just have to do makeshift. It's just the nature of the beast, so you may have to be adaptable. So with that, guys, this is the last one. I'm signing off, and I'm moving to the next chapter. See you later.